I will set the zeitgeist straight.
The movie has too much of the cast in it.
Man, I'm saddled with Jeff Goldblum, the world's most uncharismatic actor.
But it has no poetry.
That's not what this is about.
The problem was when the hero started facing adversity.
Get off your soapbox, Laura Dern.
I want to square off on this guy at a dinner party.
The music was thick.
So far, you have not dazzled me. I'm just letting you know. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Off the Mark. Good chat on bad takes of great movies. I'm Dave Columbo.
I'm Mick Andrews.
And today we have an incredible special guest. Get it going, please. Get your hands moving right now for the host of Props to History, Mike from Props to History.
Hello.
We're getting our hands moving for you, Dave.
If you're listening to the audio version, there was visual. It's the stand-up comedian in me. I'm like, let's get going. Let's get it going. Let's get some energy in the room right now. Let's get it moving. So I hate it when podcasts do 30 minutes before they tell you what the conceit of the podcast is. So I'm always trying to get better at right up top. What we love to do is we love to wince through the worst reviews of the greatest movies of all time. That's what we're doing here. And this movie that we are going to cover today is, I'm sorry, kind of been on our radar for a very, very long time. Me and Mick, when we started this, we went a little Spielberg heavy when we first started.
Yeah.
Because the conceit of, we could eventually get to more obscure movies, more cult classic movies, but we wanted to start the podcast with like the movies that everybody agrees kick ass, the movies that everybody loves, that can't get enough of them, and are on most people's top 5 and top 10 lists. And so we ended up realizing that most of those are Spielberg movies. So we were like, we're going to do Jurassic Park, we're going to do Jaws. And so we wanted to take a break for a little bit, but we thought it was time to come back for the first collaboration of, I believe his name is G. Lucas.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have that right.
I think it's George Lucas, as a matter of fact. Rather obscure and lesser-known filmmaker.
You'll see in all these reviews, they reference, like, you know, Spielberg and Lucas as like the wunderkinds, like the early 30s wunderkinds of the Hollywood scene. You know, it's so weird to see that back then.
Well, they really
we are going to be
doing...
Yeah, it's true, but it's also like they're already shitting on them as having lost their step. They're 30 years old. They're the darlings of Hollywood. But, well, boy, this was a miss. We're going to do a little movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Does anybody remember that film?
I think I've heard of it.
I remember that film. Yeah, I do have. I have a recollection of that. That movie is exactly 1 year younger than me, but I do remember it quite well.
It's a movie that I feel like everybody grew up watching. And I would put it in the same vein of like the Back to the Future movies. I don't know if you guys would agree, where like you may like the second or the third one or the fourth or the fifth one and the later ones, but everybody agrees that Raiders is the best made of the original 3 Indiana Jones movies.
I would agree with that, and I think that a lot of that comes from it being such a new and original take on something that was already in everyone's psyche at the time, because so many people grew up with those serialized adventure films that it's a modern retelling of, and it does it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair though, I'm a bit of a Dial of Destiny head myself, you know, for weirdly enough the same reason. One? It's just so fresh, you know.
Yeah. I thought what I was missing in my Indiana Jones movies was him just kind of like being in the background, kind of going, "We're going that way. All right, I'll go that way. Are we going this way? All right, we're going this way."
What I missed in my adventure films was a refrigerator in an atomic blast. But I'm glad that they finally put that in, because that made perfect sense. To be fair, there's a lot in Raiders of the Lost Ark that makes no sense whatsoever, but we gloss over that because the rest of the package is so pretty.
That's that's a point that I try to make a lot, which is when I criticize or have comments that I would like to bring to light about modern Star Wars or superhero movies or things like that. I'm not saying that the old movies never had plot holes or that they never had issues. It's what you said, Mike. It's where there's like the whole package lets you, the sleight of hand is working. The magician's sleight of hand of like, of course this doesn't make sense, but look at how good everything else, the performances, the effects, the props, everything is on point, to a point where you can flow. This movie is flowing, and you know it when you see it in a modern movie where you're kind of like, I am completely taken out. I am watching scenes play out, but I am not watching I'm not invested in the way that I would be with a movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Every shot, the way Spielberg is able to juxtapose, an arm leading the action into a thing happening where now the eye is drawn to this, and then it pulls back, and then someone comes in and out of frame, and then the camera falls. It's a beautiful masterpiece of what you're watching. So I don't mind.
Yeah, that movie is one of the few movies that I can watch knowing full well more or less how the entire movie was made and all the effects that were done in it and how they pulled them off, and completely separate myself from that. And it's the first great sort of serial adventure film that we had for decades, and then it was the last one for almost 20 years until The Mummy was released. It was these wonderful, set it before World War II adventure films that had your eponymous hero character and the damsel in distress, who really wasn't that much of a damsel in distress. But it just kind of checked all those boxes for those fun adventure films that we expect to find in a dime store novel, to use terms that make no sense anymore. But it fit beautifully.
I agree with everything you said, except that we had to wait until The Mummy for another version of that, because, of course, you're forgetting, I believe it's 1994's The Phantom, Slam Evil. You're forgetting to slam evil. You have to. Billy Zane told us to slam. Man. He told us to slam evil, and I've been slamming evil ever since.
Well, I'll have to admit that the Phantom slamming. I forgot about that. It was an adventure film.
You got to say it with the
tagline. You have to slam evil. It's all one thing. The Phantom slam evil.
The Phantom slam evil.
I can't abide by these rules. They're far too complex. It's not quite the same caliber as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's I'll say it's a solid movie though. Yeah. No Bill. There'll be no Billy Zane shade.
Before we kind of jump in here, would you like to tell us a little bit about your profession, your expertise, just so kind of everybody is on board? You should absolutely, we'll say it at the end, but go follow all of his stuff on social, Props History. It's absolutely, I will spend hours on your content. It's amazing.
Well, my name is Michael Corey. I'm known online as Props History. I am a industry prop maker, prop master, and special effects artist. I've been working in the film, TV, and theater industry for about a decade. I am also a film and prop historian. Most recently, I've been archiving the 100-plus-year-old storages of the oldest prop house in the United States, Earl Hayes Press, where we've uncovered such things as the original passports from Casablanca, as well as the letter of transit from Casablanca, things from Terminator, The Gremlins, The Maltese Falcon, and movies going all the way back to The Speed Girl from 1921, one of the first biopics ever done about a young woman who was arrested for speeding and became a national hero because of it. It's a passion of mine that I turned into a job because of social media.
And I have to also say that if you ever get to know Mike personally, there's a lot of whiplash in being friends with you, because you will simultaneously, you will wreck you will wreck the apocryphal story that you know on IMDb about, like, did you know that in movies this happened? You'll be like, that's not true, that didn't happen. And then you'll tell an even better story that nobody knows. So it is a lot of whiplash, because you're like, oh, I don't know. It's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about what we personally love about the movie. I will real quick just kind of say, grew up with it. It was always on TV. I wore the VHS out. I didn't know, obviously, beforehand. I was too young to kind of have a working knowledge of the serials, but that it was based on. But very, very quickly, I picked up by osmosis that this was a love letter to a bygone era of Hollywood and of entertainment, and it was literally like souped up to the max. And hey, let's just do a greatest hits of all of these things. And I'm very curious the timeline of, like, so it came out in 81, and it's representing things from probably the 20s, 30s, and 40s. What would be the equivalent now, where something in 2024 would bounce back 40 years?
The 80s.
To like that's
Is it Stranger Things? Are we talking about Stranger Things?
That's
1980s.
So scary to think about. That's so scary to think that. I still think that 1998 was like 10 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, the 90s were only a few years ago, right? That's how that works.
What do you guys have any thoughts about, your personal experience with the movie?
I mean, this movie's great for me. I love it. It's one of my favorites. The first Indiana Jones I saw was Last Crusade, because I grew up as a Bond kid and was obsessed with Sean Connery, and so I saw that, fell in love with it, saw Raiders, and was like, oh man, I don't know what it was about this one that hit so much differently. I think it is just, even as a kid, you can see the scale of the adventures so much. I enjoyed it so much more. But these movies became like how I played with toys when I was playing with G.I. Joes, like not necessarily recreating scenes, but the idea of like a fight scene during a chase scene.
I remember the first time I saw this movie was it was a few years obviously after it had come out, and it was on VHS actually, when my dad rented it and we watched it for the first time, and I was blown away by it. And we only watched it because The Last Crusade was coming out. And he's like, you need to watch this before we go see The Last Crusade. And I was absolutely in love with the movie from the moment I watched it. And I just, every part of it was sort of burned into my brain. And I think I watched that VHS like 5 times before my mom and dad took it home. But it was this like this absolutely wonderful adventure film that I'd never seen the like of before. And it was just, it became one of my favorite films of all time since then. For almost 40 years, I've loved that movie. So
in the review, there's a lot of mention in a lot of the reviews that I read about the frenetic pacing and that it doesn't hold together as a narrative. And it's clearly a bygone era of movie reviewer who's not used to the energy and the pacing of something like Raiders of the Lost Ark, whereas our generation straight up is like, I have nothing really to compare this to. This is moving fine.
Were they expecting like for us to watch Indiana on the plane, like waiting for him to get to Egypt? Like, where they show the red dotted line?
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of staged almost like a comic strip, where it jumps from place to place, but it tells you where you're at right at the beginning. And it does that wonderful little there's a name for what that is, and I can't remember it anymore, but that little travel line, which I think is such a classic narrative piece to show that there's travel without having Indy getting bags of peanuts every hour or so while on the Pan Am Clipper. Yeah. That airplane, that float plane that they use in that, it's a version of the Short Sunderland, which was built in World War II. That airplane still exists to this day. It's at, I believe it's in a museum in Seattle, and still has the exact same interior that they used during the filming. So you can actually go visit the plane and sit in the same seat that he sat in the filming.
I'm watching this on Disney Plus, and Disney Plus, whoever you have mentioning the rating and the what to look out for in this movie, you missed a little bit, because when you pause Raiders of the Lost Ark, all it says on the top is like mild tobacco use. People's faces are melting off in this movie.
Yeah.
A guy gets chopped up in a propeller. There's a lot
dude gets
going
shot in
on.
the
A little
head.
bit more.
There's a lot happening in that
A lot
movie.
more than. Nope, apparently just mild tobacco use.
Yeah, the face melting. If you were to put that on Netflix, though, it gets classified as fantasy violence. That's
right. Yeah.
In Indiana Jones, as a person, were he a real person, has killed a lot of people, and I think it just sort of gets glossed over because it's like adventure violence, you know. But he kills a shitload of people. Most of them are Nazis, and no one cares. But he's still killing a lot of people. Everybody glosses over the whole speech between him and Marion, where she basically points out that she was underage when their relationship started. Everybody glosses over that because he's killing Nazis. I guess it's okay. I'll ignore that.
I mean, and I remember watching the movie again, that it's a couple of lines. Yeah. It's not like I was young. It was kind of like, you knew what you were doing. Like, you knew what you were doing. I was young. You were old enough. Yeah. It goes on for like half a page. I'm sitting there with coffee going like, da 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 da.
Let's ruin this movie entirely, because why not? From my perspective as a prop master and special effects artist and prop maker, the movie is absolutely. I'm just gonna like derail this and just change subjects entirely. The movie is absolutely wonderful because it comes from that time period of, you know, starting in 1977, we had Star Wars, we had these amazing advances in special effects, and then going all the way up to 1982's with The Thing, which to me is the magnum opus of practical effects. You had so many hands from these legends of special effects coming together that worked on Raiders, because we all remember the scene where they're in the gymnasium with the government officials and he's opening that big oversized Bible and we're looking at all that art of, you know, the Ark of the Covenant with all the rays coming out. Those drawings were done by Ralph McQuarrie, the guy that designed the look of Star Wars. Like that was really his own, that was like his only like thing that he did for Raiders, but those were drawn by Ralph McQuarrie. Like that was the guy who created Star Wars, did that. And then so much of the special effects came from Industrial Light and Magic, was ILM at the height of ILM. All these amazing, amazing special effects artists and sculptors and model makers and puppeteers came together to create this look from the experience they had from filming Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back and all those other wonderful projects that they worked on prior to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then you have what is honestly my favorite piece of trivia of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the scene at the end with the Ark and the ghosts are coming out and all that stuff. And there's that really beautiful ghost that's kind of coming towards the dude and it turns into a skull. Like that's the moment, you know, they fucked, right? Like they're all going to die. That was a Playboy Playmate that was put on a flat rack with her arms outstretched, and she was dropped away from the camera. That was then shown in reverse, and the camera was kind of smudged but kept in focus so that she wouldn't be super clear. And then they just did it, well, not digitally. I think it was through an overlay process that they had the puppet, which was a little skull puppet with like little bits of silk behind it in a water tank. And then that's how those effects were created. This wonderful effect that involves a little skull puppet and a Playboy Playmate.
I'm trying to remember what that term is, like desperation breeds innovation, or it's that
necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Where before you could conceivably get by with CG, and it's like someone comes to you and they goes, I had this idea in my head, I wrote it out, and someone paid me money to turn it into a movie. We have to take this idea and now show it.
Yeah.
And there is no easy out. There is no answer. I always use, and I will use it until the day I die, the sequence with the truck.
Oh, yeah.
As an example of before you could put a CG person doing CG things for CG reasons, a guy went underneath a truck and came out the other end in Raiders of the Lost Ark for my movie ticket price. Like he did that for me.
And that wasn't the first time
because that's what
done. That's another moment where you can see that Steven Spielberg wrote a love letter to the movies he grew up with, because that came from, I believe it's Rio Bravo. It was a Western, and it was a stagecoach with 4 horses, and the stuntman actually pulled that off in camera, that very same stunt to the letter. And it was Steven Spielberg's like love letter to the old Westerns and like the insanity of the early stuntman. And they pulled it off in a much safer way, because there's a big mattress attached to the front of the truck. And then they did that whole stunt at like 25 miles an hour, which when you're being drugged through sand and rocks, that's still got to be terrible. But he's on a pad while he's doing it. But it was just like, it was this wonderful, like, homage to these early stuntmen who pulled off the dumbest shit imaginable and somehow managed to survive it. And it is just a lovely, like, beautiful scene and wonderfully done. And actually the only part of the movie that Steven Spielberg didn't have a direct hand in directing. It was done by the second unit director.
And I love that part, because I love picturing the stuntman being sat down and shown a guy sliding under a stagecoach going, "We're going to do this to you, but with a car." Also, the director ran out of time, so best of luck.
Well, and here's
the guy who wants you to do this. He's not going to be here. But...
I just love the idea of the stuntman going like, "Well, this is going to be a tough stunt. At least I'm going to get to meet Steven Spielberg." That's gonna be, and they're like, "Ooh, yeah." Is he in the truck right now? Is that why I don't see him? Is that 1981? In its original domestic run, it made $212 million. It didn't have an international, nothing on Box Office Mojo for international, but 212 in 1981 is huge.
That's a lot of money.
Other movies out at the time, History of the World Part 1, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo.
Oh my God.
Was also out. The original Freaky Friday. Yeah, it was number 1, but then like very closely after this, Superman 2 came out and kind of like it ended. Raiders made more than Superman 2, but Superman 2 kind of came out and like knocked it off the perch relatively quickly. The New Yorker, June 1981. This article is called "Whipped." Raiders is an old-fashioned cliffhanger produced with incredible sophistication of means. The images have an unreal clarity. The camera shows us more than we could possibly take in if we were there on the spot. And the hero, Indy Jones, Harrison Ford, the daredevil archaeologist, it's so funny to hear these, like, this new movie character called Indiana Jones, I believe it's called. Indy Jones, Harrison Ford, a daredevil archaeologist whose weapon is a bullwhip, makes the kind of bright-eyed entrance that's so intensely dramatic, it's funny. Spielberg, a master showman, can stage a movie cliche so that it has Fred Astaire's choreographic snap to it.
Okay. Did it say that the movie was too clear? Like that the movie was shot in a way that was too clean?
I think this is what we always get, which is no one will doubt that the movie is well made.
Yeah, well, there's that. Like, I was taking that a little more literally, like, it's Egypt, it should be dustier. Like, I don't know if that's what they were going for, but
I felt that review started out with a stab at the budget. Like they spent too much money on the film. Like you could tell that it was expensive and no quality was what it sounded like to me, you know.
The phrase is produced with an incredible sophistication of means.
Yeah,
which is that lofty way of saying like Spielberg, a master showman, can stage a movie cliche so that it has Fred Astaire choreographic snap to it. He transcends the cliche by sensational whiplash editing, but Spielberg's technique may be too much for the genre. The opening sequence set in South America with Indy Jones entering a forbidden temple and fending off traps, snares, poisonous darts, tarantulas, stone doors with metal teeth, and the biggest damn boulder you've ever seen is so thrill-packed, you don't have time to breathe or enjoy yourself much either.
Ooh. Somebody's a little bitchy. That's kind of...
Yeah. It is hilarious to me when we get to these moments in these reviews that are these like iconic movie moments that have stood the test of time, that are on everybody's list of the most amazing moments in movie history. And in these reviews, these critics are just kind of like, and there's a boulder.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's gonna be a defining thing. You're on the wrong side of history there.
You're gonna see that boulder in 500 movies for the rest of your life. Like,
that's gonna be
show up over and over.
It's an encyclopedia of high spots from the old serials, run through at top speed and edited like a great trailer for Flash. It's like a hit number in a musical, which is so terrific, you don't want the show to go on. You just want to see that number again. So Spielberg blew his load way too fast with the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, because as we know, the rest of the movie really was just kind of a flat soda.
Oh yeah, it was downhill from there. Let's be honest. I mean,
completely downhill.
Nothing else happened in the rest of the movie.
When the action moves to Indy back home lecturing to an archaeology class, you know that Spielberg, having gone sky high at the start, must have at least 17 other climaxes to come, and that the movie isn't going to be an adventure, but a competition, Spielberg versus Spielberg. Even if he could keep topping his own showmanship, parentheses, and he can't, he'd still be the loser, because the audience is fresher at the start.
I think if you advertised this movie as being like, it's got so much like high stakes action, you're going to feel worn out at the end of it. That's the best endorsement of any movie I've ever heard. That sounds awesome.
I have to agree. If I'm told at the beginning of the movie, you're going to be exhausted by the time you're done watching this 2-hour movie, I want my ticket now. I want to go see this.
But the movie should be trying to top that. Even if it doesn't succeed, you want the movie to compete with what it said. That's good.
That's good filmmaking. Yeah.
That's good filmmaking.
That's really good. That's a really good.
What is the alternative?
Yeah.
Because your first thought is immediately like, wow, if that's where we're starting, where are we going to go?
Right.
I mean, I do have to say, I would watch the shit out of a movie that had a Raiders of the Lost Ark style opening, and then the rest of the movie is just a very slow period character piece of him at a bar
on archaeology and the rules behind it, and like why it was bad,
and just him drinking at a bar, dealing with the psychology of what happened, and just like he's just like I can't believe I got out of that.
Decompressing for an hour and a half after the opening scene.
That seems to be what this reviewer wants. Here we go. Kinesthetically, again, I love the choice of words where I'm like, like you didn't need to. This is for people about whether or not they should go to the movie. Like you don't need to make me need to grab a dictionary.
This reviewer using that word is trying to establish a superiority over the audience. He's trying to establish immediately, I am more intelligent than you. You have to listen to what I'm saying. Everything after this is the gospel.
One thing we found doing this show is that there is a very unique way in which movie reviews are overwritten. That it's got every single one, because for whatever reason, as far as we can tell, that these people wrote these things with absolute impunity. Nobody was ever held accountable for their thoughts on any of these movies ever, as far as we know. And so it feels like letters from the field, where somebody just wrote something and fired it in and people printed it without thinking about it, because every single one of these reviews is written with this perspective of like, my darlings are going to live forever.
I love this.
I will not edit whatsoever.
I have never looked into...
I'm starting a sentence with kinesthetically.
I have never looked into the psychology of movie reviews, and as I'm hearing, and so far I've only heard a couple, they're dreadful. They're dreadfully written. And they're...
Do you know whether or not you want to go see the movie? Like this has already been like a huge paragraph, and it's not even like getting to it yet.
Are we still on the same review?
This is one review.
Oh yeah, this is all one review.
Good God.
That was the one paragraph. All right.
I thought it was more than
All right.
one.
Okay, here we go. Kinesthetically, the film gets to you. It gets your heart thumping, but there's no exhilaration in this dumb motor excitement. That's literally the definition of getting your heart thumping. It gets your heart thumping, but there's no exhilaration.
Yeah.
In this dumb motor excitement. The best of the satirical pulp adventure movies, the 1939 Gunga Din, with a plot lifted from the front page, was carefree. There was fresh air between the thrills and the gags.
There it is.
There was time for digressions and the pleasures of seeing the actors you knew horsing around. The picture made you feel good, as if you were singing along with it. In the past, Spielberg has demonstrated a talent for just that kind of elating silliness, and he has a lot of it going on here, especially with Harrison Ford, who does mammoth double takes, recoiling in disbelief. But Raiders is so professional and so anxious to keep moving that it steps on its own jokes. You can almost feel Lucas and Spielberg whipping the editor to clip things sharper and move ahead.
Well, if anybody listening at home had comparison to an older movie that didn't stand the test of time on their bingo cards,
Yeah.
you mark that one off.
There was some, we were doing The Godfather, and it was literally like the reviewer goes, now this whole Brando in this Coppola movie, okay, fine. You know what will really stand the test of time? And then he mentions some like French gangster movie from a couple of years earlier that I've forgotten the name of, with an actor I've forgotten the name of, but he's in the review. He's like, I tell you what, it's no Jean Poté L'Important in Jean Poté. Now there's a movie.
It's no fromage baguette. The two French words I know. My apologies to the people of France. They compare it to Gunga Din, like a movie that did not survive the test of time.
The effect of the obsessive pace is that the picture seems locked in. Our eyes never have a second to just linger on a face or on an image of planes coming out of the clouds. There you go. We made the joke earlier about like, you just want us to hang out on the plane.
I want to see him beginning his descent, please. Thank you.
I want to know if he got the chicken or the fish.
They added those scenes in to those old movies as filler because they didn't have anything else to put in there. Indiana Jones, they had all those amazing special effects and stunt sequences. The older films didn't, so they had to fill it with something. So that's why you had 3-minute shots of a shark swimming through the water in some films.
I guess it works kinesthetically.
Oh, you're right. You got me.
The frames fit into each other, dovetailing so tight that sometimes it seems as if the sheer technology had taken over. It's all smart zap, a movie maker's self-reflexive feat. So already we're at like goodbye classic Hollywood, hello modern technology that's not in it for the right reasons.
What is the criticism here? That the movie is tight and punchy? Like, why isn't this movie jankier and more sloppily made?
I feel like
it's all about the technology,
I feel like
man.
the equivalent is those people that complain now that CGI gets used too much. Like, oh, CGI has ruined Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, this is the equivalent of that time. Like, oh, we have good cameras now that don't suck and we can actually pull off stunts that are great. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. It's
not
ruining
like
filmmaking.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
It cracks me up because it's like we just spent 10 minutes talking about how this movie is literally the poster child for Hollywood doing it right, doing it practical, getting it, nailing it for the love of not just modern movie making, but a love letter to classic movie making. And this is just soaked in this kind of like, well, goodbye traditions. Hello, modern technology.
Yeah, I was
in 1981.
I was just gonna say, if this person is bemoaning the advent of technology in filmmaking, they are in for a rough 40 years.
I want to take this reviewer by the hand and have them watch a Michael Bay Transformers movie. So bad. And just go, dude, it gets so worse. It gets so worse. All right. This next sentence makes me want to throw a chair. John Williams' pounding score
Don't.
could
Just
be.
don't.
Get
Just
fucked.
don't.
Get fucked.
Don't. Just fucking don't. Okay?
No, don't.
I will not
I will
tolerate
not
any
hear it.
disparagement of John
Yes.
Williams. No.
Thank you.
Not
When
at
we
all.
did we did Jaws, the reviewer when we were talking about Jaws was like their criticism of Jaws was, did you notice how like the music like fed into the emotion that you're supposed to be feeling? And we're like, that's the job.
That's the point of it.
Like
I think
that's your criticism.
if I remember the exact like critique was like the music started making you feel things, like it was manipulating you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like-
It was manipulative.
yeah, the music was manipulating your emotions.
Isn't that what it's
John
supposed to do?
manipulating your emotions, Williams.
What
Yeah.
a suspicious way to watch movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, this,
Who hurt you?
Why-
Who
this
hurt
music
you?
is making me feel things. Sus.
what's your end game, movie?
You just hear like, you know, Parade of the Slave Children from Temple of Doom, and you're just like, I should call my dad. Like, what is happening?
That may not be the reaction they were going for, but I see your point.
No. Okay, John Williams' pounding score could be the music from any old Tarzan movie, though the fuller orchestra and at 10 times the volume. So, just like anything you'd get in an old Tarzan movie, just louder.
No.
This
Nope.
movie was too
Nope.
loud.
Like
Yeah.
just about everything else in the picture that misses, the clunky music can be said to be
Fuck you.
intentional.
Fuck you.
Oh, get fucked. Nope.
Yeah. The
John
clunky
Williams'
music can
score
be said
in
to
Raiders
be
of the Lost Ark is perfection.
Yeah.
To hell with this
Yeah.
person.
Marion's theme.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
Marion's theme. The Marion's theme is the deep cut for me because it's just kind of like, oh, that's great. And you don't even realize how often Marion's theme plays.
No, it's really
And
nice.
it's-
Yeah. Marion's theme is, I think, one of the unsung heroes of this of the score, but it's also just everything works like, sorry to make it sound so stupid, but the music does make you feel the way the movie's trying to make you
It's
feel.
manipulating
Like,
you.
Yeah.
It's manipulating you. Yeah, but like it's the ultimate. It's the music that was in my head as a little kid whenever I jumped out of a tree and did something cool.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That's what
yeah.
I'm thinking. Like, and he took that and made it a part of my head. Like,
Well, to go,
the music's in these movies is outrageously
well,
good.
to go, as an example, and I 100% agree with you, but like from my perspective, the most perfect scene in almost all of film is we talked about it earlier, the scene in the map room. That score created that entire scene. There's almost no audio
Yeah.
beyond that. It's just that beautiful piece of music from John Williams, and it does everything you want it to do and walks you through that entire scene between Harrison Ford's acting and the set and the props and that score, which manipulated me into believing that there were two stories going on there, and I'm not sure how to feel about that now. It was perfection.
That's something that Williams does so well that really kind of spoils you is the synergy of the action on screen complemented by the music in a way that other composers really don't even attempt,
Mhm.
where you only really realize it when you're watching usually a Spielberg Williams, collaboration where you're like, oh, this all flows together and is telling me such a grander story. It's so much richer. It's like the difference between watching a show in black and white and watching something in color.
To me, not having John Williams music in this movie, you might as well mute the whole movie. Like that's how integral you're taking something out of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Like it's
Again,
But-
I made the point before, but if you haven't checked it out yet, go on YouTube and watch the end of E.T. without John Williams' score. It is the creepiest thing in the world because they added the Foley of the stepping on the leaves.
Oh, good God.
So all of the actions have sound, but it's just weird. It's just 20 minutes of like Elliot staring at ET and ET staring at Elliot and nothing happening. And it's so
and you're
weird.
just watching it go, just kiss already.
Go watch,
yeah.
Go watch the medal ceremony scene at the end of Star Wars without music. It is the single most awkward thing I've ever watched. Because the only sound is Chewbacca going at the end of it, and that's it.
Yeah. Let me read this sentence again because I want you to hear the full thing. Like just about everything else in the picture that misses, the clunky music can be said to be intentional, to represent fidelity to the genre. Yet, with the manicured widescreen images and the scale of this production, clunkiness sticks out in a way that it didn't in the serials, which are usually all of a piece. So John Williams' clunky score, which is clearly just ripping off old school serials, really stands out as not in tune with the high production values of the movie.
No.
No.
No. Those are
you sure?
Those that music is incredibly carefully made, and phenomenally orchestrated. Clunky has never been a word I thought of when thinking of the score of this movie.
Or really anything that John Williams has ever written.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like this whoever wrote this review just wanted to be contrarian to be contrarian. Like they're trying to find a way to be negative about it. And they're the one that comes off as clunky because it's so very obvious they're just trying to be negative about a thing.
But also, like, I almost like want to sympathize with them for a second and go, like, what? Let's say they are being completely honest, and this is all from the heart, and this is what they saw. How do they walk around the world if they watch if they listen to a John Williams score in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's what they got out of it? I'm concerned about the way they don't drive a car or operate heavy machinery.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This was something I wanted to say at the beginning, just as like a preface before we got into it, but it's really hitting home because I could have called my shot, but I didn't. But for me, the reason we've done a lot of Spielberg movies on this show growing up as in the 90s, Jurassic Park as a Spielberg kid, all that stuff, like just being a fan of these movies. Whenever I hear somebody knock these movies and talk about knock a Spielberg movie and just say like, I don't get whatever they say, my immediate reaction is just like, oh, then you don't enjoy you don't like having fun. Like you don't.
Oh, you don't like good stuff.
Not even good stuff. Like the movies can be not your cup of tea, but I don't know anyone who's like they're fun. They're exciting. They're popcorn movies. They're not like this person doesn't. It's just not. There's no joy. Like
you're working too hard, man. Like just chill. I guarantee. Like grab some Milk Duds and a water and just sit back. You're gonna have a good time.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark is not a cerebral film. It's not something that you have to go sit and dissect what the message of it is. It's like you call it. It's a popcorn muncher. You go in, you disconnect from the real world and enjoy the storytelling. And this reviewer, is trying to make it more than what it is. On the surface of it, Raiders is a very simple film. It's what you see is what you get. There's nothing hidden there. Yeah, there's some subtlety if you're paying attention, but if you don't pay attention, you miss nothing. And it's wonderful in that you can, it's just such a wonderfully, beautifully simple film told in a complex way.
I think the especially sad part about this is that, like, what I personally enjoy about Spielberg movies is that you can watch them on a level of just, I just want to sit back and turn my brain off and watch some people kick butt, and it's going to be fun, or an adventure about a friendly alien. But there's also within that movie, if you're looking for it and if you want to enjoy a movie on this level, it's also beautifully shot, magnificently scored, highly cinematic. There's all of that stuff in there for you too, if you so choose to enjoy movies that way. This person is on that level and still not, like, still completely missing it. And that's what's doubly sad, is that you can't even you can't see it anywhere. Why anyone would enjoy this movie is it's just like, who hurt you? You know?
Well, are you ready to have this kick into overdrive?
Oh, yeah.
The actors are mostly just bodies carrying pieces of plot around. They sound as if they were ordered to read their dialogue on the run. All except Paul Freeman, who played Belloc, who has the luck to play a character torn in different directions. The character of Sala is defined completely by the word friend. And the film continues the process of turning Nazism into comic book mythology. The Nazis are fiendish clowns. Yeah.
Is bro trying to defend Nazis?
Yeah, what is that?
Sounds like he is.
Like,
he's like,
come on, they had some levels. They had
a bit of nuance to these guys.
There's some nuance that you're not getting. I didn't feel like you really captured.
What?
I mean, even in the 80s, nobody backed up those turds, and this guy's like trying to, like, they have more depth to him.
No, but here's the thing. Like, I agree with you. It is a simplified, they are like bumbling Keystone Cops. Totally. Nobody has a problem with that. Literally nobody in the world, not even Germans today, have a problem with a movie where, like, Nazis are walking around going like, oh no, what are we doing? Oh no. You know, like, is that gasoline like leaking over here? Boom! Like, nobody has a problem with it.
I mean, they are they are sort of portrayed as like twisty mustache villains in it, but that's their purpose in the film, is to be the twisty mustache villains, and to trash talk John Rhys Davies' performance of a character that was supposed to be a very small man initially. And not have near.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Sala was written as a very short little guy, like skinny, short little guy. And,
physically small. Oh, okay. I thought you meant the part.
Like physically small.
Okay.
No. Well, the part was actually supposed to be a lot smaller too. Like, when John Rhys Davies showed up and decided that he owned the stage, like he does in absolutely everything that he does, Spielberg was like, I'm going to put you in this more because you are an entire life unto yourself, and we're absolutely going to have more of your character. And John Rhys Davies was like, okay, sounds like a plan. And that Sala was developed from that.
The heroine, Marion Ravenwood, Karen Allen, is fearless, resourceful, and as perky as all get out. She hops around, conking people on the head. At the same time, we're supposed to take her for a woman of the past, a woman with a past. Indy, somehow we know that that's really for Independence, not Indiana, loved her but left her 10 years before, and she's been running a dive in Nepal. This happens all the time where, like, reviewers make assumptions or like suggest.
Oh my god, this review is so fucking stupid. It's gaslighting me into. I was like, you guys are far more steeped in this than I am. Is that ever actually referenced in the movie that he is actually Independence Jones? Like,
no, it's Indiana.
No, it's Indiana.
It's Indiana.
Okay, it's one of those dumb things where it's like, this is symbolism for a thing that no one ever. Okay.
This current review, he's reading into it way too far. He is right. Care about one thing. Her character, Karen Allen's character, does whack people over the head a suspicious amount of times. Like, she does it. Like, she's good at it. Like, that's her go-to attack. Like, that's the A button for her, is like standard attack, someone over the head from behind. And she does it like a half a dozen times throughout the movie.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
she's fine. Boop, boop. Leave her
It's
alone.
kind of like a Vulcan neck pinch. Like if you know the spot, why not? Do
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Like you do it,
You got to move.
it worked
Yeah,
once. Keep doing it.
critical hit every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just like she rolled a nat 20 on crit for that, and then like it just works every time.
Just let it ride. Just let it ride.
There's no space for sex. When Marion and Indy finally kiss, the music rises with such a clatter and shriek, you think the theater has been nuked. The people in Raiders reminded me of a friend's saying that her 5-year-old niece, who was sitting back watching the Mandrell sisters on TV, suddenly got up, put her face right up against the screen, squinted, and asked, "Are those puppets?"
What?
Imagine reading the newspaper going like, I think I am going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like,
Yeah.
Nick, you said it best that like the air of these reviewers comes off like a professor who knows he has tenure and knows that nobody is coming for his job. There's no editor there going like, that kind of went off the rails, right?
You lost yourself in the middle of that sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about frenetic pacing.
Yeah. But just to address the substance of whatever the fuck that was. The first thing that he says is that there's no space for sex, and it just really begs the response, is there any need for it? Like why would why would that be required?
I feel like this dude just wanted to see Karen Allen naked. Like, and he's disappointed that he didn't get to,
My thought for this is probably just what we see all the time, which is, why isn't this movie like the other movies? And they're watching this movie going, oh, I know how this goes. This is American James Bond. So now is the sex scene with the Bond girl. And the movie doesn't need that. And so it doesn't happen. Because this movie, to this person's point that they've already said, is incredibly tight. So it's not there. You get the kiss. That's sufficient. Like, we're moving on. Cut, print, check the gate.
Yep.
Like, we're done. And they're like, but wait, this is a Bond movie.
But
Stupid.
them having sex is actually suggested in the movie. Like right before the submarine shows up on the cargo ship.
Yeah.
They get down. Like it's all suggested. Like it makes it clear that that's what's happening.
Oh, yeah. I think plot-wise, I think it definitely happens. He's saying, why don't we see it? And it's like,
right,
we don't need to.
It's not
Why
necessary.
didn't this movie that's based on serials from the 30s show the kind of graphic, gratuitous sex from the 70s?
Right.
Like, why didn't that happen?
Oh, now you're going to be subtle? Now you choose that subtlety?
Oh, my God.
The holy artifact itself is just a MacGuffin, and a dull one at that. One more super death machine that could enable Hitler to win the war.
Oh.
And when the Ark must do its mystic tricks, it sprouts poltergeists that recall the impish flying saucers of Close Encounters without living up to them.
You rat
There's nothing
bastard.
at stake. There's nothing at stake in Raiders. No revelation, no surge of feeling at the end.
I'm insulted on behalf of the prop makers and special effects artists that they look at one of the most iconic pieces in film history, the Ark of the Covenant, and say that is a poor design, that is not, and then that ghost effect at the end, which had never been done before, was a completely new effect.
That whole sequence is gorgeous. It's one of the best climaxes. Mike, do you think you could talk a little bit about one thing I've always been fascinated with that I don't know much about is the face melting scene? Do you know anything about how that works? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the face melting that we see most specifically with like Tote, the little nasty Gestapo officer. So they actually sculpted those heads. They made a mold of the actor's face, and then they made those heads out of wax, and then they filmed it up against a heat source as it slowly melted, and then sped up that footage, and that's how you see the faces melt. Belloc's head just exploding. Was a cast head that was then filled with some material to look like in brain matter and stuff, and then literally blown up. That's how they got those shots, those wonderful special effects shots. And then they did something similar, to go off the rails a little bit, in the third movie, where dude ages like hyper fast ages, like when he chooses poorly. They made a mold of that actor's head, and then they cast it in styrofoam, and then that styrofoam had a heat source applied to it, and that caused it to shrink in that way. And there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's the basics of how that was done. But for the melty faces, they were made of wax, and then they just slowly melted. And you can kind of tell it's sped up when the eyeballs fall out, because they just automatically go pink and they're just gone.
I can't think of another place to put this in, but I do have to give a shout out to the actor who played Toad. At least once a week, I will sit with a bunch of people and go, now, what shall we talk about? And none of them, they're all like, the hell are you, like what are you doing? Because it is the creepiest. It's such a good, for like I can't think of a better non-physically imposing villain who is absolutely terrifying. Perfect casting of like, it's just, oh yes, Fräulein, I know you will. It's just crazy.
I believe he's a British actor. And I can't remember the other stuff that he was in, but it's phenomenal. You're absolutely right. He is not physically intimidating at all, but he is extremely intimidating, because they don't ever even say the organization he works for. They never do. But we all know he's Gestapo. Like from the beginning, everyone knows the moment he walks in the door of Marion's bar, like, this guy is Gestapo. Like, he just has that air about him, and it's wonderful.
Lucas and Spielberg, better than anyone else, are great with like the musical sting and the silhouette and the costuming of going like, bad guy, like, got it.
Yeah, you immediately clock him as a bad guy. What's great about that entrance, what I love about that is the coat hanger, is just the little, and it reminds you like, oh, this is an adventure villain, not a, like, it's just like a way to keep it a little light and kind of like, but you still manage to feel intimidated by this tiny little man with
his little bitty coat hanger.
These kind of, he's got these kind of like dandy-like tendencies, which is very fun. Like,
I dressed as him for Halloween one year, and I did like the stuff on my hand. I had the coat hanger. I walked around, and you can see photos of me at a bar realizing I just dressed up as a Nazi for Halloween. You can see like the realization of me being like, "What's up? All right, everybody." Like, wait. Oh no! Like, I need to go home.
That character.
This was not a good. I don't want to.
Major Arnold Tote was his name. He was portrayed by Ronald Lacey. Was the actor's name.
Nice,
and beautifully portrayed.
Brilliantly.
By the way.
This is the last paragraph here. Despite its daring surface, Raiders is timid movie making.
Fuck you.
Did they watch?
Do we want to? Timid movie making. Yeah, I know. Like, this is the I didn't read the book report.
Right.
They
watched the trailer. That was it.
The film seems terrified of not giving audiences enough thrills to keep them happy. It's an amalgam of Lucas's follies, plot for its own sake, disassociated from character or drama, the effectless heroine who's a tougher version of Carrie Fisher's spunky Princess Leia in Star Wars, and effects that Spielberg, the youthful magician, has already dazzled us with. Yeah, we've seen this already. Watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, going like, seen it.
Oh yeah. Oh, they did that like 2 years ago. Oh, we've totally seen this. What? They built a whole airplane that was almost airworthy and blew it up. That had that's not a thing that's normally done for films. Well, back then it wasn't anyway. It is today. But
Spielberg seems to have accepted the Lucas pulp repulped format as a safety net. It's not right for him. Spielberg fumbles a lot of his action sequences. And some of the episodes are simply tired. A fight between Indy and a huge sadistic German wrestler, a sequence with Indy jumping on a moving Nazi truck that's full of soldiers, chucking them off one by one, and ramming other cars in the convoy, to the accompaniment of soul-grinding music.
Soul.
All right, again.
This is the last sentence. Seeing Raiders is like being put through a Cuisinart. Something has to be done to us, but not to our benefit.
How do you guys read these reviews time after time after time and decide, yeah, we're going to do this to ourselves again? Because I'm just angry about this 40-year-old review.
Yeah.
The person who wrote it is probably maybe deceased, but fuck them. They're terrible.
Mike, the closest thing that you ever get to absolution is when we were doing the one for Star Wars, Mick, the review you found, they actually went back and found the reviewer and he annotated his own review with like updated information, which was beautiful because it's like, you didn't like Star Wars. It's now 2015. Where's your apology in 3, 2, 1? And he stood by it. He was still like, nah, I stand by it. Not a good movie.
This shit's for nerds, and it's ruining cinema, and I stand by that. It was like basically like not. I'm paraphrasing, but barely. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Right.
But he like there are moments in the review when they were like, "What'd you think about that?" And he goes like, "Yeah, but also television and sci-fi. I'm not very fond of it."
I never liked sci-fi.
It's like so.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing reviewing Star Wars? Yeah. No.
The thing that jumped out at me is the knocking Spielberg's action sequences is just, for this movie of all movies, is criminal. You guys are far more steeped in the behind the scenes stuff than I am, but I do remember listening at some point in time, I forget when, I either listened to or read an audio transcript of Spielberg and Lucas with their like first meeting notes talking about Indiana Jones. And it's fascinating just in the sense of like the way the two of them approach like a characterization. Like Spielberg clearly thinks in scenes, and he's just literally just like, for session 1 is describing the scene where he's fighting the German mechanic and the propellers of the plane are moving around. I mean, the reason is I'm bringing this up is like these scenes came out of him fully formed, and it's just an amazing creative mind that is capable of doing this, and it's insulting to say that these are not beautifully executed, because they are. But what always cracked me up is to hear George Lucas's way of going about characterization, because you'll hear Spielberg starts talking about this fight sequence, and he'll be like, yeah, and Indiana's about like 4 years away from tenure, so he's been teaching more classes than usual. And Spielberg will be like, yeah, anyway, so he's like a grave robber, but like a good one. And he'd be like, yeah, and he lives in Chicago, and like, the rack focus between the two of them is
well
insane.
Honestly, it's Lennon and McCartney. it's that kind of like someone's picking up the blind spot, and what your strengths are, someone is right there to kind of go like, and also let me flesh this out a little bit more. All right, that was a review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's tons more, but I wanted to kind of stick with that.
Honestly,
one,
I feel like that's
encapsulated it.
The magnum opus of reviews, negative reviews for. I mean, you could read more, but how are they going to get any better than that one? Because it's insulting on absolutely every single level, and it seems to be written by someone who never watched the movie and went into it with the sole purpose of just shitting on it from a great height, which they did. And it's deplorable in every way. I hate everything about this review, and I physically despise the person that wrote it, and I don't even know them.
Calling the Nazi truck scene, the action scene, tired. I Let's start a GoFundMe to get the stuntman who went under that truck to buy him a one-way ticket to this person's house.
Just punch them straight in the face.
Let's see what happens. Let's just like film it. We'll be in the background going like, "You have anything that you'd like to say?" Just two old men at this point, but like
Right.
you know. So
what's the
now for my favorite part, best part of the show: 2 reviews and a lie. I will read 3 1-star reviews for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Your job is to figure out which one I created and am faking as a 1-star review and which are real reviews. If you win, you get a point. Right now, Mick, you've got 2 points. Cool. And Laura's got a point. I have yet to get a point.
I was thinking about this, Dave. I had a little twist I wanted to propose to you.
Here we
maybe
go.
I shouldn't have done this while we're recording, but my proposal, my modest proposal is, if we can correctly guess which one is yours, you have to post it on Rotten Tomatoes.
with my face and my name. I
Yes.
love it.
Oh.
I don't think. Okay, how about this? I'll do it if you, Mick, get it right, because when we have guests, that doubles the chances.
Fair deal.
Number 1. If adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones. That's what they say anyway. I found it more like if adventure has a bedtime, it must be Indiana Jones. Great action, I guess, but the moments in between, literally nothing happened until it ramped back up again for the finale. It wasn't believable the girl, I forgot her name, could drink that much. And why is he afraid of snakes? Movies have gotten way better than this. Don't waste your time. That's review number 1.
Okay.
Review number 2. Ever since I became a movie fan, my taste for dazzling action has been cultivated by movies from the late 90s up to the present, such as the Matrix trilogy, Spider-Man, X-Men, Blade, and the awesome Underworld franchise. Today I finished watching the so-called classic, the first installment of the Indiana Jones franchise. It almost put me to sleep twice. The opening scene in the cave with the spiders were interesting, and that's it. There was never a moment when the protagonist was in grave danger. Yeah, he got trapped in a tomb. Whatever. Raiders of the Lost Ark is god-awful. It looks dated. So is Star Wars. That's review number 2. Review number 3. I had to watch this film because of a film arts class that I am in. I've heard so much about this movie, and I expected it to be fantastic. People said things like, all in caps, "sets a new bar!" exclamation point. I was genuinely disappointed after watching this film. It was just a bunch of mindless explosions and chase scenes. I expected it to have more substance. I probably would have appreciated it more had it maybe, I don't know, a real plot or story of some kind. The insignificant storyline it did have was so hard to follow anyways because of all the explosions, crashing, and fighting.
Huh.
It's so sad when you have to remember that 2 of these are real.
Right?
It takes a little out of me every time.
I think another thing that's also sad is that it's very clear that at least one of these reviews, if true, was written at least in a modern era. So it's a new generation looking at this film and going, this is garbage, and whereas this film is such cinematic perfection, at least to us. And if that review is true, this is someone who quite literally looked at one of the greatest films of all time and went, this is crap. And that's dreadful.
Yep.
It's not as good as the rad as fuck Underworld franchise.
I know.
The whole franchise.
All 17 of them, I think now.
All right. What are your answers?
Mike, I will give you the honor of first choice.
Oh, thank you.
Which one did I write?
God. I want to say that you wrote the third one, actually.
Sets a new bar, exclamation point.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many There's a couple of them that have phrases that I've heard you use before, numerous times. So,
We've tried to get to the point where we're writing it, and it's like we're putting in the grammatical errors. We're putting in,
you play to the level you're at. You know what I mean?
I feel like the second one that brought up the Underworld franchise is just so on the nose that it feels like there's
no way
it's too stupid to not be fake. But I feel like if any of them are going to be real, I want it to be that one because it's so moronic. So I can't vote against it. And the first one just I don't know. It just doesn't say like, yeah, no, this is fake to me. Like I'm going to go with the third one. Final answer, I guess.
I'm gonna go with here's my thought. First, I'm gonna go with number 2, just because either one of two things is true. Either there's a person out there in the world who wrote that for real and meant it, and I need to track down and meet that person, or
who said it's no Underworld? That's for sure.
It was Dave who wrote it, and then he posts it, and I do get to meet the person who wrote it. And posted it.
you met him about 10 years ago, man.
So I'm gonna go with number 2.
I wrote number 1.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Nice.
But also fantastic news. I gotta meet this Underworld dude.
Right? You get to make a new friend.
Yep.
Holy smokes. I have
That's
so many questions.
Amazing. Well, that has been Off the Mark. Mike, where can we find you? What do you got going on?
I can be found on just about any social media platform at Props to History. I can also be found regularly at Earl Hayes Press. I can be found on any social media at Props to History. I'll just go with that one.
Fabulous. And you can find
me.
me.
I just wanted to say, everyone who should check out Mike's stuff. I've been going down a rabbit hole for about a week now, having an absolute blast with learning so much. It's really, really awesome. So Mike's stuff is absolutely fabulous. Everyone should check it out.
It's already been a fascination of mine, but it's also like reinvigorating my love for it because your stuff, Mike, is done so actually methodically. This isn't just somebody sitting in an armchair going like, let me tell you a story. Like, you know what you're talking about. And if anybody can answer the asbestos or not asbestos in Wizard of Oz, like that was like such a long drawn out, and I'm like, you're getting into the nuance of the texture and everything. It's like, this is the person to come to get your answers.
Well,
it's amazing.
This next year, but which by the time this airs, it'll be 2024. I have a whole lot of long form content planned for the YouTube, including a collaboration with the Museum of Popular Culture in Seattle, Washington. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition. And then there's a couple of production company archives that I may be going through. So I'm hoping to be able to bring content from all of that and tell the stories of props with the props themselves, the actual screen use pieces. Yeah. So, but
that's so exciting.
You can find me at davecolumbo.com, DVD Columbo on Instagram, Dave Columbo on TikTok. This has been an awesome episode. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell a friend. Please let us know what movies we should do next. Send us your own 1-star reviews for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we'll read them out on the show. This has been awesome. Until next time, this has been Off the Mark. Ugh.